How old did she tell you she was? Okay.
An elementary school music teacher is caught red-handed sexting who he thought was a middle schooler, allegedly asking for naked pics, talking about sex positions, and taking her virginity. He says it was all because he was in a sexless marriage, but a sting operation soon finds he's allegedly spent more than $1,000 on child porn in the last year alone.
I love working with kids, like genuinely love working with kids.
Right.
Like, I don't know what that was. That's not, to me, that's not who I am.
This is Scandal, presented by Law&Crime. I'm Sierra Gillespie. I said it right at the start of this episode. We've got an elementary school music teacher accused of trying to involve a middle schooler in a sex act. But that's not all. He's also married to another teacher in the district, and he's also a father of 2 toddlers. So this man has multiple children and was still caught, allegedly, trying to get a 13-year-old girl to have sex with him. The kicker, it wasn't a middle schooler at all. In fact, it was a 29-year-old undercover person. And here's what's more. We've got the messages that this defendant sent to the undercover decoy, again, who he thought was a teen girl. And they're not looking so good for him. Today's scandal brings us to Long Island, specifically Wading River, New York, where 37-year-old Mark Verity worked as an elementary school music teacher. And I say worked as in past tense because Mark has recently been suspended from Wading River Elementary School because of the scandal I'm about to lay out for you. Now, everything begins with Poachers Long Island, which is a group that seeks out people attempting to commit internet crimes against children and catches them in sting operations. And that's what seemingly happened in the case of Mark Verity. Now, it started with messages through Kik, which is an app that's frequently used in cases like this because it doesn't require a phone number to register, so you can remain more anonymous. On top of that, it's also pretty popular with kids, so child predators really like this app. Now, according to Poachers Long Island, Mark started messaging who he thought was a 13-year-old girl via Kik, telling her things like, quote, "You're very cute." What he didn't realize was that he was actually speaking to an adult who used AI to help this person appear and sound like a younger girl. After about an hour of messaging on Kik, the conversation soon switched to Snapchat. According to the New York Post, Mark began asking this girl for nude pics and attempted to meet up with her for sex. Now, interestingly, Mark was allegedly honest about being in a relationship. This is what he told the 13-year-old about his wife, quote, "You're prettier anyway. I'd make sure you got the same attention." According to Poachers Long Island, he also asked about the girl's bra cup size and how far she'd gone sexually with boys in her past. The girl told Mark she'd only kissed boys before, and he reportedly replied saying she has, quote, "great lips for kissing." In another situation, he allegedly asked her what sexual positions she would try and talked about taking her virginity, saying he would be, quote, "super gentle." Now, a lot of this information comes from court docs, but we do actually have a few Snapchat screenshots of what Mark exactly said. So let's start with this conversation after a phone call happened, and you can see both Mark and the alleged 13-year-old reference that. Mark sends a smiley face, and this 13-year-old replies, "Hee, now can I see your face?" "What'd you think?" Mark says. She says, "You sound nice." Mark says, "You sound older than you are, LOL." This 13-year-old says, "LOL, so I'm perfect for an older guy," and adds emojis with tongues out. "Very true, LOL," Mark says. "Sorry if I was awkward. Never spoken to a girl your age before, TBH, to be honest. So yeah." "Hee, that's okay. It was cute," this girl replies. Mark says, "You sure?" Big eyes emoji. "Yeah, I've talked to other older guys before, and usually on the phone they seem so nervous. So how did I get so lucky to be the first girl my ... And that's where the conversation cuts off. But in a second conversation, things get more intense. Mark says, "I think you could show me a thong or a bra. That's reasonable. No nudes, in person only." So she sends a picture of underwear. "Here you go, LOL." Mark says, I meant on you, silly girl. Hee hee. The 13-year-old replies, hee hee, IDK. I've never taken a pic like that before. Some guy might steal my phone and send it to himself. Now, we've blurred the image in the next Snapchat. Even though it was created with AI, and it is not real. I want to be very specific about this. This is a fake image. However, it's supposed to be, and what Mark believes, is a 13-year-old child in her underwear. So she sends this underwear picture with 2 emojis of monkeys covering their eyes, and Mark says, that's a D good start, with 3 heart eye emojis. Your legs are sexy AF. Now, the day after these messages were sent, Mark reportedly kept messaging who he thought was this 13-year-old girl throughout his school day. As far as we know, he had no idea what was about to happen. When the day wrapped up, Mark was confronted outside of the school by predator Poachers Long Island, and all of this was recorded on camera. Now, this video was provided to us, the Scandal Squad, courtesy of Predator Poachers Long Island.
Hey, Mr. Verity. Good, how's it going? I'm Douglas Jr. How old did she tell you she was?
14.
Okay. See, appreciate you being honest, man. That's all we want to do right now is have an honest conversation about the situation. What about you made you want to, like, what about her made you want to, like, keep talking to her like that?
Yeah, I'm really sorry. I have no idea.
Yeah.
And I knew I was...
How did she even find you in the first place?
I was in a chat room on Kick for what was supposed to be like adults.
Okay.
What I thought was an adults chat room.
Yeah.
It's like.
Oh, okay.
Which,
Yeah.
like, to me, in my mind, says let's marry people.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
So I was under the assumption in the initial that we were of age.
Yeah.
Initially, I'm not going to sit here and lie to you that I didn't know otherwise.
No, yeah.
I know that it was. I know that it was wrong. I know that I messed up. That is 100% on me. Like, I love what I do. I love where I work. Like, I love the job that I have because I love working with kids. Like, genuinely love working with kids.
Right.
Like, I don't know what that was. That's not, to me, that's not who I am. Like, to me, I'm a music teacher. That's what I do. I work with kids. Like, I love what I do here.
Yeah.
I don't want to jeopardize that. I don't want to lose that. I don't want to lose the family that I have, the amazing things that I have. Like,
As you can see, Mark admits that he was messaging with someone who he thought was a 13-year-old girl and acknowledges that the messages were wildly inappropriate.
there's a lot of flirting about the fact that she was interested in older guys,
Okay.
that she had talked to older guys before, then we had talked about, we flirted about like things like outfits for the days. We talked about a lot more. I mean, we talked about like touching and kissing and things like that. We had talked about, I guess.
How did it get to a point where it got sexual like that?
You know, that had to be me. I mean, like, I definitely was the one to push that a little bit.
Okay.
I felt like,
So what about her, like, made you, you know, given her age and everything, what about her made you make it sexual?
I think part of it might have been the flirting, but like also it could have been like my wife is a more petite woman. I think it might have been like she talked a little bit like she was older at times, but like I don't know.
I mean, some kids are mature like that.
You've got to wonder about a motive in a case like this, and Mark actually explains it all. He says he's in a sexless marriage.
At home, in terms of my marriage, in terms of sexually in my marriage, I think maybe because things have been not as regular, for lack of a better phrase. I don't know how else to put it.
Like, your sex life's not really...
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that maybe that played a role in that. I don't know. But I just know that I could never physically ever, like, in person, ever do any of that. I know that, like, I spoke to someone on the phone. It was probably her. I know that, you know, like, how it appears. I'm not going to sit here and beat around the bush on that. I know exactly how I get how it works. I know I talked about it, and I know there was discussion about it, and like
so
positions.
the positions.
I know where. Yeah.
Okay.
And I think in my mind, the idea of the flirting about it and talking about it and having like the affection talked about and everything is something that I don't have at home. And so I think it's like maybe it was an attention seeking thing in that moment.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, but again, I could never physically really actually do it. And I know I think there was flirting about that.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna be around the bush or try to hide that. Like, I think there was discussion over like how could, but like push comes to shove, I could never.
The predator catchers ask more specifics about the pictures that Mark requested and what he was hoping to receive.
Were there any photos sent between the two of y'all?
I sent a picture of my face,
Okay.
like myself in my blue shirt. She sent her face. She sent a picture of a pair of underwear and a picture of that underwear on her. At least it looked like it was on her.
Sure.
Yeah, and was it, so you're saying at the
On the
underwear?
thigh.
Okay, on the thigh, so it
It's just
wasn't.
the thigh.
Oh, okay. Did you ask for maybe
I
a little
did.
more than that?
I did.
Okay. What exactly did you ask for?
I'd asked for her to stand up. I had asked for to see either her in bra and the thong.
So by
I think I had
standing
said
up.
more, I think is what I had said.
So what did you mean by more?
Like, I think I said more after she sent the picture of it on her. And I think when I was saying more, I meant like, I think I was implying in the bra and the thong. I like standing up in them, so to see her ass.
Right.
Okay.
There was at some point where, she was asked, "Hey, what's under your comfy clothes?" And she responded with
Yes.
nothing.
And maybe I did ask to see that. I'm sorry, I forgot.
Well, so on your end, it said prove it. What does that mean?
I think, like, genuinely, it was either, I'm trying to think of what in my mind at the time, it was either to, like, pull down the shorts so that I could see that there was no underwear, or, like, you know what I'm saying? I mean, it could have meant the other way, too. It could have just meant take it off.
Okay.
Yeah.
Take.
Yes, take the clothes off.
And here's yet another bombshell. Mark tells the predator catchers he spent approximately $1,000 on child porn in the last year and has access to a, quote, mega link.
When's the last time you've seen something like that? Whatever the answer is, I'm not going to judge you.
Yeah.
But when's the last time you think you saw something like that?
What, like,
Child.
Yeah.
it was like a Telegram Dropbox, like whatever, like mega something.
Mega
that
link, yeah.
Somebody sent me a month ago.
On Telegram?
On Telegram, I want to say. Yeah.
Okay.
That I looked at. That I did not purchase, but that I looked at.
Like how many files were on the mega
I want
link?
to say it was over 1,000.
This conversation continues, but I do want to point out, midway through it all, some police officers approach, so keep an eye out for that.
So when did this curiosity towards this younger age group kind of become a thing? I mean, I'm asking this because it's, obviously...
Yeah,
absurd.
given the circumstances, yeah.
And I'm not saying that means that, there's no more teaching. I'm just saying that it's important to know and figure out how this can be helped, right?
Maybe 10 years ago.
What do you think it was?
I have no idea.
Did you
I genuinely, I don't know.
did you have this interest before becoming a teacher? Is that safe to say?
How long have you been a teacher for?
15 years.
Okay.
So how do you think this interest... so since you've been a teacher since
I understand how it looks.
22.
Yeah.
So how do you think this interest developed?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Have there been any...
Maybe like thinking back on high school friends that like high school like girls that I was very interested in when I was in high school. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah.
Thinking on when they were in high school with me, maybe.
So you don't think you ever kind of grew out of that phase,
I don't know, maybe.
Did you ever do anything when you were in high school with maybe someone in middle school? Because you
No.
seem to be in that 13,
No.
16 range.
I had my first girlfriend, I was 15.
Yeah.
She was. Hi.
How's it going?
Hey, how's it going?
Basically,
Yeah, temporary. You
just
want
an
to have
elementary
Yeah.
school teacher. You're not going to ask a 13-year-old to have.
2.5. Probably going to need you as
Can
well.
I?
Yeah.
Hold on.
You're not going to ask a 13-year-old to have again, are you?
Yeah.
Last time doing this stupid.
You're not gonna ask them for shoes or anything like that?
Is this your last time with that crap?
Ever.
Ever? Okay.
Yeah, his teacher's right across the street. We're just having
Yeah.
to talk over here. So.
You're not gonna access
No.
like child Telegram anymore? You're done doing that?
All right, so
No.
I obviously have no idea what happened. So what's going on?
Um,
Take him to the front of the car. Just make sure he doesn't go anywhere and just grab ID from him.
yeah. And he's used that phone to access child. So
All right. Do you have
my
your ID?
yeah, it's in the car.
Yeah.
And
Grab that.
these are your chats. You can keep
Okay.
them.
Yeah, we'll just hold on to
yeah,
them. So
no
my
problem.
boss is coming out.
All right.
Obviously, these situations aren't.
Yeah, I know. We know. It's in my jacket.
All right.
Mark Verity was taken into custody and now faces charges of attempted dissemination indecent material to a minor first degree, attempted use of a child less than 17 years of age in a sexual performance sexually motivated, and another charge, attempted use of a child less than 17 years of age in a sexual performance. Mark was arraigned in Suffolk County Criminal Court on Saturday. His bail was set at $75,000 cash, $150,000 bond, or $750,000 partially secured bond. And according to the New York Post, Mark's parents were in attendance at the hearing, and they actually put up their own home as collateral to help him be released. Meanwhile, Mark Verity has been suspended from work at Wading River Elementary School. A statement from the district's superintendent reads in part, quote, "I'm writing as a follow-up to last night's message regarding a Wading River school teacher who's been removed from the classroom and will not be permitted on school grounds pending the outcome of the investigation." About that investigation, the Suffolk County Police Department says in part, quote, "At this point in the investigation, there is no evidence that any student was a victim. The district is cooperating with the investigation." Now, thankfully, this case ended before any real children were harmed, but it could have been so much worse. And there's a lot I want to talk about as far as the repercussions and all of that. So let's bring on today's guest. It's former criminal prosecutor and author of the book Open Bar, which is about a sexual misconduct scandal kind of like this. It's Dan Shore. Dan, thanks for coming on with us today. And I guess I'll start with kind of the most basic question here. The fact that nothing actually happened. Thankfully, no kids were harmed. Any photos that were exchanged were all AI. They weren't real, but obviously he can still be prosecuted, right?
Absolutely. And I was a sex crimes prosecutor involved in many cases like this. And most of the evolution in this law started about 20 years ago, where people would sometimes say explicit things online, but they would say, oh, well, the person wasn't actually underage, so they shouldn't be prosecuted. And the laws started to change to say that if someone messaged someone in an explicit way and believed that the person was underage, that is a crime. So that now it's about 20 years that's being prosecuted. The law is constantly trying to keep up with people who are committing crimes like this because technology evolves, especially with online activity. So the law evolves to catch up. But yes, he expressed in these text messages that he was aware that this person was underage. So even if they weren't, that is still a crime under current law.
To me, it shows intent, right? The fact that he believes that this person is 13, even if they're not. He shows in the messages exchanged, he believes and thinks this person is 13, then talks about, sexually explicit images, requests them, talking about, taking her virginity, things like that. Is intent really big for prosecutors here?
Absolutely. And when there's no actual sexual act, intent is almost the whole part of the prosecution, because you have to prove that the person intended to have an explicit sexual conversation where they were proposing sexual activity with someone who they believed was underage, even though in this case, the person was not a young underage person. It was part of a vigilante group. That's a really interesting concept that people are trying to show that people are engaged in this type of conduct, document it. And the intent here is huge because if someone has the intent to do that, there's the reason to believe as society that they might do it with someone else who actually is underage. So society wants to find that out earlier and prosecute people who are expressing that intent. And as you said, there's no subtlety in these messages. The person who purports to be the underage girl is writing about how she's lucky that she's like the first person that's underage that he's reached out to. He acknowledges she's underage, talks about sexual acts that he wants to have with her. And that's the thing that's interesting now with technology is so much of this misconduct is documented in a way that it wasn't 20, 25 years ago with text messages, social media. And you would think people would be afraid to put in writing their intent here, but we see over and over again that people do. People think that they're safe. They think I think a lot of it is emboldening that people get away with certain interactions like this and they think they could get away with more. And if law enforcement or some other group like this is recording the conversations or documenting them, then that's extremely strong evidence.
Okay, I'm so glad you brought this up because I've done countless stories and it blows my like I literally am grabbing my temple right now because it blows my mind that over and over we have people, this case included, where they're putting these explicitly in written form that can come back as receipts that prosecutors can have on a platter and say, well, you said it at this date, at this time, at this location, so tell me about that intent. Okay, so I have a couple of questions about this. Number one, the fact that some of these messages were via Kik and then Snapchat. I'm wondering if that shows Snapchat, for instance, consciousness of guilt, just in the way that Snapchat messages are known to delete unless you screenshot them or specifically save them. I know a lot of people go on Snapchat specifically for these reasons so that the messages will kind of go away. However, those of us kind of in the field know nothing is completely deleted. So I guess that's my first question in all of this. Snapchat, consciousness of guilt. Are you connecting the dots in the way that I am?
Yeah, absolutely. And I see this in a lot of the cases I investigate now of sexual misconduct where the alleged messages happened over Snapchat. And those messages generally are not available after a very short amount of time. And that's a tough thing for investigators. But here, the group that was organizing this, they were able to capture these messages. So generally, you can't save the Snapchat message on your phone without the other person being notified that it was being saved. And you don't want to do that with someone who you're trying to document is engaged in sexual misconduct. But you can have another device that takes a photo or captures the screen and then you can show that. So, right, this does show intent because Snapchat is a way to communicate with a young person in a way that the sender, in this case, the defendant, would likely think these messages are not going to be preserved. And also, Snapchat is a common way of communicating of young people. So that might have even given him more reason to believe this really is an underage person and I'm not being deceived. And it's really someone who's older and trying to document that I'm engaged in bad acts. So that does go to their intent to communicate this way in this explicit way with someone they thought was underage over a medium that would disappear.
Right. It lulls them into a false sense of security because on Snapchat, you get a notification, like you said, when someone takes a screenshot or saves a message or whatever. I mean, I remember in college, friends, nothing like this, but one person would have their phone up and the other would grab and take a picture of it to not notify the other person of a screenshot. But in this case, the Predator Poachers Long Island definitely were going above and beyond to make sure that they have the receipts. And that leads into my next question in all of this. The fact that we have the receipts, we have these messages that were explicit, that were exchanged, that is great for prosecutors, but for his defense, I mean, how does he even combat that?
Right. Well, often the defense in a case like this is that the person did not really intend to have the type of interactions that they were saying they wanted to have. And these messages are so explicit, they're so ongoing that it's hard to see that being a winning argument for the defense. But I've seen that in other cases where someone says, oh, I was joking, or I didn't really mean that. And they might also try to say that they were entrapped, that the other person was suggesting this type of interaction first. So that's a big part of when law enforcement or private groups arrange these conversations. It's really important that the defendant be the one initiating a lot of the explicit conduct, explicit language, so that way there's no entrapment argument. But ultimately, in cases like this, it usually comes down to a plea bargain where there's overwhelming evidence and the defendant is trying to get the best plea deal that they can. Maybe that's a non-incarceratory sentence or something else, because the overwhelming evidence is hard to get past if you're a defendant here.
I think going through and researching this case, I agree with you. There is an overwhelming amount of evidence. I mean, 76 pages, I believe, worth. Plus, we have video of all of this. And that leads into the next thing. Not only do we have the messages written from his phone, he texted. I guess there could be a defense, maybe. Oh, somebody took my phone. It wasn't me. I mean, it seems outlandish, but people have done it before.
Mhm.
However, something I don't think that he really could defend is on video when he's approached outside of his school, he fesses up and admits, yeah, that was me. Verbally, we have the man saying these things and saying, yeah, that was me. Yeah, I do have child porn or access to it on my cloud, etc. I mean, can he recant, or is that a nail in the coffin, so to speak?
That is extremely important evidence because we live in a day and age where it is so easy to fake messages like this with AI and other things. You could go online and you could take any individual you know and you could quickly create a fake text chain or Snapchat message that would show them trying to reach out to a young underage person for sexual activity. So, how do we know that it's not fake? There's different ways. One is his admission when they confront him. Another is law enforcement actually getting his devices and imaging them to see whether the communication is on his phone or his computer, although he could have gotten rid of those. So having him actually say that is important so he can't later persuasively argue that these were fabricated conversations.
Something else that was admitted in all of this is that he said on his cloud he has access to a motherload or a mega, something like that, amount of child porn. Now, I'm wondering about this too, because sometimes we see federal charges in relation to child porn because it could be, a kid from whatever state and he's in New York, and it could be, crossing the state lines, etc. And I haven't seen anything of the like about that. Do you think it's possible that more charges could come down in the way of these child porn allegations, especially if he already readily admitted it on camera?
Absolutely. And I'm sure law enforcement is digging into this deeper, and federal law enforcement often has oversight over this type of material. The question isn't just what he was possessing. The question is also where he got it from. So if he has a lot of child porn on his computer, law enforcement's going to want to know, well, who's disseminating this? Is it another person that he knows who's sending it? Because they're going to want to go after that person too. Or is it some website or some other source that's sending him the child pornography? And then law enforcement want to know, well, how are these images of child pornography originated? Were they originated through fake imagery, or the real people who were photographed and videoed in the child pornography? So this is usually the very beginning of what law enforcement is going to look at, both for him and for other people involved, because if he has that much child pornography, it's unlikely that he created all of it. He probably got at least some from somewhere else.
Right. Where did he get it is so important. And if he's not the only one, to your point, if he has as much as he says that he has, there's got to be more people involved in this and more people who should be held accountable for breaking the law and abusing children in this way. So put a pin in that, all of our Scandal Squad viewers. There may be something down the line with all of that. Now, something else I wanted to talk about, really one of the reasons we're doing this case is the fact that he's a teacher. He is married to another teacher in the district. Then he has two young children. I believe their ages are 2 and 3. And oftentimes in our stories, we talk about mitigating factors. But to me, these are huge aggravating factors. He's married. He talks about his wife to this young woman, who he believes is a young woman, I should say, who he believes is 13, mentions his wife and says, oh, you're prettier than my wife. I mean, a dig at the very least, but talks about how he knows that he's married, he has kids, he's around children, he's an elementary school music teacher, for goodness sake. I mean, what do you make of all of these things? Would prosecutors highlight these aspects of his personality, his background, his career, if this were to go to jury trial, let's say?
Right. Well, for the spouse, you can't imagine something more heartbreaking than finding out not only is your spouse being unfaithful to you, but is trying to do with an underage person while disparaging you. And that's just a horrible set of circumstances. Being an educator is not going to be a mitigating factor for him because he put himself in a position of trust with children when the actual crime he's accused of is violating the trust of a child who is supposedly writing with him. It turns out to be an older person, but he doesn't know that. So that's not going to be a mitigating factor. If anything, it's going to be a cause of concern for law enforcement to want to know, well, if he's trying to interact with one 13-year-old who he thinks is 13 in a sexual way, what about all these other students who he's interacting with every day in a live setting? Is there any alleged misconduct there? I'm sure law enforcement will be looking at that. So I don't see any mitigating factors from his educational career or from having children. That's definitely not seen as a mitigating factor. And the whole situation is heartbreaking for his family.
Yeah, to me, it seems like it's worse. It's adding fuel to the fire. The fact that he was in a position of power, that he has kids. So, if you're a parent, you don't want your child to ever be the victim of anything. And he should be putting himself in the cap of this parent of the alleged 13-year-old who wouldn't want any bad to happen to her. Thankfully, the 13-year-old is not real. But I guess let's talk more about him being a teacher. Now, the Suffolk County Police Department has specifically said, we are investigating this. We're working alongside with the district. They're being very cooperative. At this point, it doesn't seem like there were any students who were victims in all of this. But to your point, they've got to go through and check on all of this, right? Because he did have access to all of these kids. So what would that investigation look like? Because it's got to be very sensitive if there are any victims. Number one. Number two, these are children, elementary school kids who some probably don't even know what we're talking about, nor should they, because they're way too young. So does that make things more tricky?
Right. There's a lot of complications here. I mean, the first thing you want to do is see if there's been any complaints against him that the school district is aware of. And maybe those complaints were looked at and deemed to be unfounded because there wasn't enough evidence. But maybe now with this additional information that law enforcement has, they'll look at them again. The other thing is sexual molestation of young people is very underreported because there's a lot of self-doubt, misplaced self-blame, people afraid to speak up, people, as you just said, not even understanding what's happening and confused to say anything. So just the lack of reporting doesn't necessarily mean that there was no misconduct. So usually you have law enforcement or other investigators maybe start with a sample of students that have been in his classroom or interacted with him with other ways and talk to them in a general way about their experience. You don't want to alarm them by obviously talking to young people in a sexually explicit way, but maybe just saying, did he ever bother you? Did he ever do anything that made you feel bad? Did he ever touch you? You could start asking those questions, but if this person's been a teacher for a long time and they've had many, many students, it's hard to know. And one final thing on this topic is often when someone's name gets out there like this, it emboldens other people to step forward, or people may say, I doubted myself that this was wrong, but now I see that there's a problem here. So I've seen many cases where more people come forward after the initial allegations are publicized like this.
It's so sad when you break it down like that. People gaslighting themselves to think, oh, maybe that was a dream. Maybe it wasn't real. Maybe I'm overreacting, whatever. And I hope that there's no one who was affected in this case, or really any. But I mean, if they were, maybe you're right that this could embolden them to come forward, and hopefully we'll know more about that soon. I wanted to end on talking about the defense, because we've talked a lot about the prosecution because there is, a lot of evidence in this case. The defense, I mean, does he even have one? What do you expect? Would this end in a plea deal? I know you touched on this earlier. Could he even bring a strong defense?
If these messages are real, that they're not fabricated, and we have no reason to think they are fabricated. So if we're assuming that they're real and he made that admission on video, then I don't see any factual defense by him. I think in a situation like this, you're usually looking for a plea bargain. So if he doesn't have a criminal record, his attorney may try to get a non-incarceratory sentence where he has probation. They're going to argue in court probably that there were no real live victims who were hurt. Obviously, this is very dangerous for society to have someone thinking that they're interacting sexually with a 13-year-old, but I'm sure his lawyers will press the fact that no real person was hurt in this instance, that he might not have a criminal record. I think they'll use that to try to get the best plea deal they can, but I don't see an argument here based on the facts we have to get an acquittal.
I don't see that either. I mean, I guess I do want to report right now, he is innocent until proven guilty. There has not been a conviction at this point, but there is some pretty compelling evidence that the state of New York has. So to your point, we might see a plea deal down the line. I guess we'll have to wait and see. For today, though, Dan Shore, thank you for coming on and walking us through this really tragic and difficult case.
It's always good talking with you, and thank you for covering this case. Thank you.
And that's where today's scandal leaves us for now. For the latest updates in this case and all things true crime, make sure to subscribe to our channel. To connect with me personally on social media like Instagram, you can find me at Sierra Gillespie. And you can send messages our way to scandal@lawandcrime.com. Thanks for watching today's episode of Scandal. I'm your host, Sierra Gillespie, and I'll see you next time.